Welcome to the Get Real Podcast, your high-octane boost of full-on reality therapy for personal, business, and investing success with your host, Ron Phillips, because somebody's got to tell it like it is.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Get Real Podcast. Ron Phillips here. And I have teased about this topic for a long time. I've told you for many months that I have partnered with some guys, and we've put together a tech-enabled platform. It is called Lineage, and I'm going to introduce it today to you, and I'm going to do that with Bryan Jenkins, who is on the show today, and we're going to have a discussion about Lineage and what it is, who it serves, how it operates. I'm very excited to not only have him on the show, but have him on the Lineage team. Bryan, he has over 2 decades of experience as a property manager, owned and ran and grew an incredibly successful property management company. In addition to that, Bryan is a leader in the community. You know, you think about property management company, you think about an individual property management company. Look, Bryan has spent the better part of a decade or a little bit longer in leadership of NARPM, which is the National Association for Residential Property Managers. It is the premier organization for property management companies in the country. And the whole point of that is to give back to the industry. It's to educate and make the industry better for all of us who use property management companies. And I have experienced that level of giving back because he's giving to Lineage, to the company, to everybody involved in the company, and he's taking his wealth of knowledge and making us all better in the process. I've been able to experience it. Bryan, welcome to the show. Thank you for coming and helping me introduce Lineage, which is an incredible business and platform.
Yeah, thank you, Ron. My privilege to be here today, and I appreciate the opportunity. And always love being on podcasts. I had one of my own for a few years, and just really enjoyed it, and just always enjoy conversation revolving around our industry.
Boy, there needs to be so much conversation in this industry, in the investing industry. It's like, I haven't felt it as much as I've felt it the last year, but there's like this hunger in the industry, both on the property management side and the investor side, to bridge this gap that it seems like is a massive chasm between the two. And really, investors and property managers should be on the same team, driving the exact same way with unified forces. And it seems like in the industry, while both parties are trying to do it, there just seems to be a gap in the middle, right?
There is. And I think that gap is largely, it's fueled by lack of communication. And that seems to be one of the driving forces there, to where, you know, the property manager doesn't always understand the investor and the investor's goals. And I think that a lot could be done there to improve. And that's really excites me about what we're doing here.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about what Lineage is. Let's talk about it from both perspectives, because, you know, Lineage is a tech-enabled asset management and investment platform, and it creates financial clarity for everybody involved in the investment lifecycle, which is really, really cool, because there's things that help property managers and there's things that help investors, but there's really nothing that helps both of them, right? And we'll talk a little bit about how we do that, but this takes all of the financial data that all of the investors want, and I would say need. It puts it into a very easy to read and understand format. And then we're able to deliver that not only to the investor, but also to the property manager. And we're educating both the property manager and the investor about each other and how to use this data to make communication, like you said, better, to be able to grow portfolios for both sides of the equation, which both are trying to do and need each other's help to do, right?
Yeah.
Let's focus a little bit on this communication and how Lineage and this platform helps with that communication gap that you were talking about, Bryan.
I kind of view Lineage as the hub for all that because it's, if you think about traditional relationship between a property management company and an investor. So the investor has the financial data, and the property manager, what they're seeing is income and expense related only. So neither party really has a true picture and be able to piece it all together. And for the investors, and just like myself, I'm an investor, and I've got partners in business as well, investing. And what we always did was pull everything together and do our own manual calculations on everything. So we were kind of tracking how the investment was performing, but that was labor intensive for us on some level. But the property manager never really understood the entire picture. And what Lineage does is brings all that information together. And you said it earlier, it's the investor sees it, and they see it at their own leisure whenever they want to see it, right? So they're seeing the transparency of all the information being put together. But the property management professional actually has the ability to see that as well, and together help the investor reach some of their financial goals and their investment goals. So that's what I'm excited about. Just communication on that level has always been difficult because from the property management company's perspective, the majority of the time when they deal with an investor, they're signing a management agreement, they're collecting rent, they're sending disbursements to the owner. And outside of that, typically the owner hears from them when there's an issue or they need approval or funding for a maintenance related issue. Beyond that, the average property manager is not communicating with the investor, and thereby what they're doing is just being a service provider. They're not actually being part of the team to help the investor reach their goals and objectives.
Yeah, this is a team sport. I mean, nobody's going to succeed in this business by themselves, either on the property management side or on the investor side. And I love that Lineage bridges this gap. And I would love to think that all investors are doing what you said with their data, that they're going out and getting all this stuff and they're building spreadsheets and they're really trying to figure out what their return is. The reality of the situation is they're busy, just like the property management companies are busy, right? So your average investor that has invested with RP Capital over the years, they're busy professionals, right? Or they're business owners. In some way, they've got different stuff going on. And this is kind of a passive investment for them. And when they have to get active in it, it's like you said, it's always because there's a problem. There's no proactive reach out from somebody saying, hey, this is how your investment is actually performing. Did you know it was that good? Because most people don't know that. And I'd just like to say from RP Capital, where we've actually performed a part of this for our clients over the years, it was very labor intensive, like you said, Bryan. It was, we were painstakingly putting together, comparison analysis so that we understood what the property was worth, and trying to get with them on, how much their principal has gone down from their principal reduction from their payments, and put together tax analysis for that return, and then try to come up with a real cash flow statement when the only thing that we have is what the property manager gives. And that's incomplete because it doesn't have taxes. It doesn't have their mortgage payment. There's all of these ancillary things that they pay for that don't hit the P&L that comes from the property manager. So no one has it. Property management company doesn't have it. The investor doesn't have it for the most part. There are a handful of clients out there who probably do what you were doing, Bryan, but for the most part, they don't. And when we talk to them, they're shocked at what their property has actually done. It almost always outperforms where they thought it was, especially when you factor in this whole proactive and reactive outreach from the property management company, because the only thing they know about their property is that when they talk to somebody, it's negative. Something's wrong.
That's it. And, you're talking to property managers, their greatest risk of losing a client is always when the property goes vacant. Right. So, and then at that point, if they're talking to their client's coming back and saying, okay, well, I had to replace, You could fill in the blank, a water heater, HVAC, a roof, whatever this year. So I've not made money, but the focus seems to be on the cash flow component. And the property manager is not armed with the additional information to give them the information on the other three pillars, right? So they're just referencing cash flow only because that's all they're seeing. I always think that it's just as important. All four pillars are important, but the one that most people overlook easily is that principal reduction piece where you've got a resident's paying your mortgage down for you, and in a good situation, you're cash flowing and experiencing principal reduction. So yeah, there's so much more along communication lines that can happen. And it's, for those operators that really try to create a different type of experience and work from that reactive and service level provision only, trying to move into the proactive management space and become a better operator, which is what we did for years. My partner and I diversified our portfolio by type of properties we were managing, the type of clients we were managing, bringing in those intentional investors, institutional players, and then taking it a step further and being proactive in communication and trying to create webinars. And as we would onboard new systems and processes, consolidate those into a webinar for all of our clients and engage our clients as to the why, right? Giving them the why. And that was something I picked up during my military services, is that our commanders would give us the why, so you would have the buy-in. And so I saw the benefit of that. And, that's a big, scary thing. We talk about property managers being scared to make change. But at the same time, once it's done, you get past that first one, you realize, hey, I'm getting a lot of positive feedback from my investor clients. They're saying, hey, nobody else, I've got properties elsewhere. Nobody else is trying to do these things. And that's where it really hits home, is that communication piece and transparency. And that's the beautiful thing about what Lineage is done here. It's provided the transparency for both sides, both the property management company and the investor, so that everybody can.
Yeah, and I think there's this weird dichotomy where you have investors who, because the only communication they get is negative, they feel like there's an opposition to the people who are managing their asset, and that somehow there's this weird relationship. And then on the property manager side, they're trying their hardest. I mean, if investors only knew what property managers actually did, I think that relationship would be better overnight. But it's really difficult as a property manager. I love the outreach that you guys did and how you were able to do that. I think most property managers would love to do that. They don't either have the bandwidth to do that. They financially can't make it happen. They operationally can't make it happen. And they're frustrated because I feel like they want to. I've never met a property manager who didn't want to be a better property manager. Just like I've never met it. And it's just so. The cool thing about Lineage is that it not only is there this transparency of the data in the middle that gives both parties a real look into how things are performing, but because Lineage has the ability to provide a service level outreach, like a white glove experience for both the investor and for the property management company, it brings this asset management piece, which is so necessary in the industry. It brings it full circle for everyone. It allows for property management companies to do this without increasing overhead, without having to go hire and train a whole bunch of people to do this outreach when they themselves probably don't know how to do it. And then it allows the investors a positive outreach on behalf of the property management company that can better bind the investor and the property manager together as a team, which is what is supposed to be happening.
Yeah, and you touched upon the training dynamic. So even like in our experience, we did go out and do the hire and hiring the person and training the person on the process that we wanted to implement in regard to our investors and giving them the real-time feedback. Because the beauty of it is, once you're providing the performance review on an annual basis with your client, they understand, hey, these are my top performing properties, and these are my less than top performing properties. And then you have the ability to reposition and maybe sell your underperforming properties and buy properties that are better performing properties.
Yeah. And
so taking the time, there's no lag time with Lineage. You've already got a highly skilled white glove experience waiting for you. You've got the ability to expand your service level and increase it. And I always use the analogy of rising tide raises all ships. So, for me within the industry, my goal was always, if you're a better operator, it forces those operators around you to become better. And you couple that with an organization like NARPM that focuses on best practices education for all of its memberships. And you've experienced going to one of their conferences. It's everybody shares their family recipes with one another as to their success. It's unlike anything I've been part of, but ultimately through that and masterminding and such. So to your point earlier, all property management operators, the good ones are really focused on becoming better operators and better serving both their clients and their residents. But, one ties directly to the other. But the other piece that I like, Ron, about what this transparency does is, there's a thought process in some property management company owner operator mindsets that, they look at sales agents differently, right? They look at sales agents as being selfish, not team oriented. It's sales is in opposition to property management. And I think a lot of those have probably experienced that in the course of their career. So that's caused them to form that opinion. But what I love about what Lineage is doing with the investment specialist on the white glove team is being able to pull that in. And there's a trust and a relationship that's established with our PM partners right there. So you've got the property management company aligned with the sales team and the ones that are giving the information and providing the service and having those conversations with your investors, along with the investors. So everybody's on the same page and working together toward the same end goals.
Yeah, it makes the experience more like what you would assume a typical financial planner investor experience should be, where you set out with a plan and, you have somebody who is helping you execute the plan that you created, right? And then that's not all they're doing. They're actually trying to help you assess how things are going. And if everything isn't going right, like you said, one of the things that a good financial advisor would do is help you go, hey, look, this is how we have things allocated right now. And this bottom performing part, let's swap this out for something that's performing better. And I think like you said, for most property management companies, it's a scary thing when there's a vacancy because they could lose the property. And look, here's another thing that I think from an investor perspective, sometimes it feels like, well, the property management company is not trying very hard. They don't care if my property is vacant. Boy, that could not be further from the truth, man. Like literally, if there's a part in the customer life cycle that scares the crap out of a property management company and motivates them, it's when there's a vacancy. Because like you said earlier, if they're going to lose that unit, which by the way, investors out there, when a property is vacant, property management company doesn't make any money. And that's the time when, if it's vacant and somebody wants to sell, that's the time when the property manager is going to lose that potentially that property, that asset, which is a loss to their bottom line. There's no property manager, good, bad, ugly, in any situation that wants to voluntarily lose an asset out of their portfolio. That's just not what they're trying to accomplish. So as an investor, no, they're motivated to get that thing leased. They want it leased because that's when they start making money off of the asset again. Same time you do, which is why it's so weird to have this chasm in the middle, because everybody should be on the same page and everybody should understand transparently what's happening with properties and with assets. And as a property manager, if your outreach to this person is, hey, you have this number of assets and this bottom one over here is not performing really very well. Why don't we take this one and the equity that you have in it and put it in something that's going to potentially perform better for you. What investor would say no to that?
That's right.
I don't know any who wouldn't say.
No.
Everybody would be like, "Well, hell yeah, let's do that."
So the other thing that transparency does, Ron, is it actually, it lightens the mood for the property manager, and that's an odd thing to say, but the reality of it is once you have that transparency, and then you're truly evaluating the asset, you're not trying, as a property manager, you're not restricting information from making it to the owner, right? So you want them to get copies of their move in, move out periodic walkthrough reports. You want them to see the condition of the property. You want them to understand, hey, our average time in turn is X amount of days. And when you're having that discussion on pricing, depending on the turn that you have taking place, if you're doing upgrades, and what does that mean to me, an evaluation of, you do this upgrade, you can experience an extra, 10, 15, 20, whatever % of rent. It could be the expectation, but having an open door for communication, so you have a better understanding from your investor. It's, do I want to be more patient, hold out for a higher rent rate? Is that more important to me than pricing it so that it moves in 14 days or less? But I need to understand from an investor standpoint, which of those do they want to focus on? Because some investor clients get so focused on that top end rent that they don't understand, but the vacancy sitting there, does away with any profit margin they would have. And so that's always, even on my own properties, I'll tell the manager that's managing our portfolios, say, hey, we want you to focus on, we want to, you do your market analysis. We have a meeting on that. We discuss it. We're going to focus on what gets it rented quickly. And we're going to leave a little bit of meat on the table, so to speak. But we want to get it rented quickly and get it cash flowing again.
Yeah. What's the math? And take the emotion out of it. And that's what transparency of the data does for both sides. How cool would it be for a property management company to know what your true cash flow is on a property? Because right now they don't know. They absolutely do not know. The only thing they know is how much money they send you and the P&L, the P&L that they have, but it's missing data. So both parties have the data. It's a lot easier to look at that data as a property management company and understand from the investor's perspective what this actually does to their bottom line on the cash flow. And then and on the other flip side of this, as an investor, if I'm looking at this, the only thing that I've been focused on, because the only reports I ever get are specific to cash flow, it's really easy for me to lose sight of the fact that I may have made 15 to 20% without the cash flow that year. And that if I can just get past this cash flow issue that I've got right now with the vacancy or the maintenance item or the CapEx item that I've got, next year I'm probably going to do another 15 to 20%. Plus I'll probably have some cash flow. If I can understand the entirety of the returns and how my property is really performing, it changes the way that communication happens between a property manager and investor, and it changes the understanding between a property manager and the investor. It allows for better communication. I mean, before you did I'm just going to ask you a question that, everybody else knows we don't prep for these podcasts. So Bryan has no idea what I'm going to ask him right now. He's probably scared. Before you did your positive, proactive outreach and you kind of changed your systems internally, how often did you sit down and go, man, how can I positively outreach to these people? I mean, how hard was it to come up with a reason to call a customer that was positive? I mean, how difficult is that when?
Well, and I'll tell you, it's difficult, Ron, because usually if you're in reactive mode, and we jokingly call it firefighting mode all the time, and you can tell, just spoke with a company last week that was in this boat, and their staff, they had 2 major employee positions that left the company, and it just threw them into a tailspin, and they had a pretty good operation prior to that. But they've been in that mode now for 8 months, and trying to rectify it and having that conversation. But it's, once you get into that mode, then you get burnout. You get people just dealing with the squeaky wheels or the fires that pop up, and you're not able to do anything proactively. So your bandwidth gets squeezed down to nothing, right? And I'll be honest, we started off as investors and then managed a decade before I ever found NARPM. And NARPM really changed how we ran our business. That was a catalyst for the change, but a lot of the change came from other influences outside of that, working with investors, sitting on REITs, and that sort of thing, and learning. And that was my thing, is always learn. But I had to position the company by fundamentally getting our processes, our procedures and processes down. So once that was done and setting up the guardrails for our team members and getting the right people in the right seats, once you got it up and running, then you can maintain and improve upon it. And I had a friend of mine, it's been several years, but he's, I know the guy, I've known him for 20 years. So he had some investment properties he brought into us, and jokingly, I bumped into him at church, and he said, you guys are great, but the only time I hear from your staff is when there's a problem there and needs some more money. And that just really stuck with me. And I went back and I'm like, okay, I told my partner, I'm like, we've got to change that mentality, because if he's telling me that, he's my friend. Everybody else is thinking it. They're just not saying it. And really just that re-education piece. But ultimately just improving upon that. And then it opens other doors too. Once you understand that you're working toward the same goals your investor client has, it's, some of the doors it's going to open is having discussions that are focused and forward thinking toward deferred maintenance, or, you touched on CapEx, but giving the investor a heads up that, hey, this, one thing we used to focus on, even on new construction stuff, was like, the quality of like caulk around windows in the South that gets super hot and bakes that stuff, and, around roof vent, pipe vent boots and that sort of thing. So we would always schedule like, hey, 3 years in, you need to have a tune-up done to your roof. They need to probably replace a boot or two, definitely within the first 5 years, but we recommended 3, get up there, recaulk everything, because some of the quality of product they were using was really low to get the price points down. So put a better quality of caulking on it, preventing the issues before they start happening. And by the way, we know what the average life expectancies are. Good operators, we've got that sorted out through home building associations providing us all this data. And there's so many more sources out there now, but understanding your dishwasher is going to last X amount of years in this region, your water heater, so on and so forth. So start to forecast that out and help your investor plan for those unforeseen expenses that are going to be upcoming. And there's a lot of tech out there now that's pretty exciting. I think we'll see some things in the future to where you'll be able to predictively, diagnose that this GE model dishwasher is going to fail in this region, usually by year 13. If you've got to move out at 12 and a half, do you make the decision to go ahead and replace it proactively, or do you just wait for it to fail and then cause additional damage and expense to you? So those are the type things that are happening within the industry that are pretty exciting. But once you open those communication lines, there's a lot of knowledge that your local operator that can push back to you and help your situation as an investor.
Yeah, I mean, you touched on something that's super important, and maybe we can close with a discussion on this, Bryan, and that is that there's so much really cool tech that is over the last probably over the last couple of, but over the last 5 years, maybe a decade, has started to come into the industry. So much tech, and we have a tagline at Lineage that this is high tech with high touch. And we had multiple conversations around this. I keep trying to beat this drum, and you joined the team and you're beating the drum before I even told you what the drum was. I mean, it's just, this is so important. I'd love to have a discussion around this, because there's some really cool tools, like you were just saying, but these tools, I've not seen them. And maybe it's an adoption thing, Bryan, but I don't think so. I think there's a component in real estate, because there's people living in the assets, and there's people that own the asset, and there's people that manage the asset. And tech helps all of those things. But at least not yet, it's not complete without high touch.
Yeah, that's makes the difference. I've seen companies lean more on the tech, too much on the tech, and the relationships fall by the wayside. Investor clients are unhappy, residents are unhappy. Think about your own experience. It's like trying to call into somebody and you're stuck in this loop of endless voicemail and you can't get a real person on the phone. We've heard that story for years. But that's, as companies kind of lean up their staffing and lean more on tech, I think that becomes a bigger issue, because at the end of the day, real estate industry in general terms, it's all about relationships. And, we live it every day. And it's because of those relationships that people get better and people come up with solutions together actively. I think the other part's true too. If you lean too much in tech, becomes an issue. And I think if you don't lean into tech, you're kind of bypassed, right? So you're behind the times. So it needs to be a good blend of utilizing tech, having that personal interaction and a relationship basis. And that, I think we do a good job of that with the white glove service, because that's, a platform without that relationship component of it and the advice coming from other humans that are really good at their jobs and helping you succeed. I think it's just tech.
Well, here's what I hope that you got out of our discussion today, Bryan. I really appreciate you jumping on here and really delivering some wealth of knowledge from the property management space. And I promise you guys listening, we'll have Bryan back. He has so much to offer to you as investors, but also to any property managers who may be listening. I know we have a couple that listen to the show. The takeaways, I think, are, well, number one, I hope you gained a little insight into Lineage that I've been dropping for months. We were working on this really cool thing. It really is that cool, folks. I haven't been this excited I was really excited when I started in real estate 25 years ago, but I haven't been this excited about anything in real estate for well over a decade. It is that cool what we're doing.
Yeah, and I know the investors are going to be excited. Sorry to interrupt, but I know the investors are going to be excited about it, because all the property managers I've been speaking with they're ecstatic that there's a tool out there that can help them.
The thing I love about this, Bryan, I've said it I don't know how many times I've said it to you, but to the group, but the thing that I love about what we've put together is that every single person wins in any transaction that happens. Every single person wins. And we are at Lineage, we're dedicated to helping people build generational wealth through real estate. That's the property management company. That's Lineage. That's the investor. That's everybody involved in the investment life cycle. Everybody wins. And I'm really, really excited about it. So I hope you guys get a little bit of a taste of what Lineage is. We will bring more to the table and tell you a little bit more about how it works and get a little more granular. But I'm really excited about that. I hope you got a little bit of that. And then here's the second thing I really hope that you gained from this. You investors, I hope you gained an appreciation for how hard the property managers are trying and desire to do better for you. Because they really are. Sometimes I think it doesn't feel like that because of the communication issues that we talked about today. But I promise you they're trying. They really are. And hopefully you could feel that from Bryan. He comes from that industry and has a passion for it and making it better. And I guess lastly, Lineage is a solution that will help bridge this gap. And we are so excited to deliver to as many property managers and investors as we can over the next many, many years as we roll this out. So any final words, Bryan?
Yeah, I think really dovetailing on what you just laid out, I think we talked a little bit about the relationship component of it, but at the end of the day, Lineage is a great product. It's going to do great things within the industry, but it still takes the relationships, and it still takes people putting forth the effort, right? So the investor, the property management company, and Lineage, but together, I'm convinced everybody it's a triple win. I mean, we'll come back to the win for all three parties involved, and that was always a qualifier for us. Anytime we rolled out a new system, it had to be a win for the property manager, the resident, and the other client. But in this case, Lineage is taking the place of that resident. And ultimately, I even go a step further to say the resident is a winner in this situation, just because it makes the operator better and communicating better with their investor clients.
Absolutely. Folks, that is a wrap. And as always, until next week, get out there and make something happen.
This has been the Get Real Podcast. To subscribe and for more information, including a list of all episodes, go to getrealestatesuccess.com.